Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.
All right, hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Strong Dads. Merle, how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
That's good. You had your big anniversary weekend there, right? When
we
you and
did.
Linda went away for the weekend.
Yes.
How was that?
It was good. That was the first time since before COVID that Linda and I were together for like a weekend.
Okay.
So
how many years? How many years is that?
34 years.
34
years rich.
Round of applause there. Very nice.
Yep, 34.
Years.
So
good for you.
Yeah, and we enjoy hanging around each other. We definitely are like our best friends. So if no offense, but if I have time, I'm going to choose to spend it with her, not you. So,
so it wasn't like you guys got home. You're like, all right, get out of my face.
Enough. No, we have a pretty good time. So, but yeah, we did some hiking, got lost on the trail, ended up being on the trail for about 2 hours. That was about 45 minutes longer than what we wanted, and it was about 90 degrees. But that's kind of stuff that you got to laugh about. Learn.
Get lost together.
I kept saying, you got to put your flesh back under control. Is it screaming at you? I'm tired. I'm hot. I'm thirsty. So, but it was good. And then after that, we hung out by a pool for a day. So it was pretty chill. It was pretty chill. Yeah,
all right, I like it. Awesome. Well, that's good. I hope you guys are having a good week out there. Welcome back. We're gonna dive into kind of an interesting topic here.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get some good conversation out of it. This is one I may pass the buck and just keep asking you questions. I have you because the topic of what does a rich man look like, which is what we're going to talk about today, is an interesting one. The whole conversation when you get into the finances and talking about finances, that's one that you and I are not necessarily experts by any stretch.
I've seen it before, but
seen that money thing before. So hopefully our conversation is more along the lines of what hopefully this show is all about, and more of the character base of when we talk about that rich man. Obviously when we talk about that, I think we probably missed the mark a little bit if we didn't talk a little bit about the financial aspect. Right. But more so than that, man, we're talking to you strong dads out there. We want to encourage and talk with you guys about the idea of what does that rich man, what do they look like?
Yeah. So I have a question for you then.
Oh boy.
So do you ever have you desired to be rich?
Yes. I would venture to say most people, right? Most people, I think, would probably say yes.
You open up his car door, he's got like old scratched-off lottery tickets all over the place.
I definitely think, Jenny and I are trying to do things now to hopefully put ourselves in a good financial place in the future. It's hard, obviously, raising kids. For any of you strong dads out there, know that kids are expensive, right? And they have a tendency to really soak up a lot of your extra cash. Mm-hmm. So Jenny and I are doing things, whether it be, I have a deferred comp at work where I'm putting away an X amount of dollar every paycheck. We have a college fund set up for both of our girls because, in my world as a fireman, there's a lot of guys who are unable to retire because sending kids to college, because obviously we know college is very expensive. I would definitely say yes. My goal in the future is to quote unquote be rich. And again, I think being rich or being wealthy is a relative term, because what that looks like to me is not necessarily the same for you.
Right.
There is a dollar figure that I think most people can say, well, if I hit that dollar amount, I would consider myself rich. Mm-hmm. But when it comes time for Jenny and I to retire, that dollar amount might not be what I think
or what it takes to make it. Yeah.
So I think the goal is ultimately to hit a point where I feel like I'm financially stable to be able to take that next chapter of my life, get to that retirement phase. Because that to me, not that I'm living for retirement, but for me, especially being a fireman, we're able to retire when I'm 52. That's the age in which I'm able to retire. When I'm 52, I still going to have a decent amount of life to live, hopefully, right? And Lord willing. So when I hit that age, man, I hope I'm in a place financially able to live life and enjoy life after retirement.
Right.
So,
well, it's a question that came up to me partially for what you're talking about right there. So I came through the school world, the public school world in the state of Indiana, and I was eligible to retire at 55.
Okay.
And so I'm 58 now, and so I retired 3 years ago from the school world. But I knew long before I retired that I wasn't going to be able to retire. Just our state retirement is just not that good.
Sure.
As far as, I don't want to complain about it, but you certainly are not going to stop at 55 when you still have health care and kids in school and all these other things. So my retirement was more of an opportunity to do something different rather than to stop working. And that's actually where Rock Solid Families comes in. But, the interesting part about it was, and we talked to our strong dads, you guys are at different parts of the journey here in terms of thinking about what is richness and wealth. Where am I at this point? You're 33, I'm 58. You have different ideas of what you think you could do. When I was at your age, I didn't even really think about retirement. I did have some things going into 401 or 403B plans and stuff like that through the school. But I was not wired for money. Like I was not a thinker of money. Okay. That's just not my wiring like it is with some people. But all of a sudden the time came to retire and you start to look at, well, how much money do I actually have? And then that question sort of that you posed was, well, I'm 55. I'm going to have to die in the next year to say that I have enough money.
Yeah.
You realize, shoot, I don't have enough money to live into my 80s or whatever. And again, that's just part of living. It's not a regret or anything like that. I got into a business that didn't pay a lot of money, and that's okay. But here's what I really want to flip this whole thing to, okay? Because we are not financial advisors, because we are not money guys,
right?
But because of the work that we do with men and families, and specifically me with the guys that come in, I want to go down a slightly different road, and that is the whole idea of I work with men every day, okay? Every day they come in my office, and I've had guys that come in my office that are multimillionaires. And they're coming in for coaching, whether it's personal coaching or family coaching, marriage coaching. And it doesn't matter that they're millionaires. There's much of a wreck in other areas of their life that they can't even, the money is not the happiness issue, okay? And it really gets to be kind of eye-opening when you go, okay, wow, here I am envious of this guy who's coming in with me that just pulled up in his Jaguar, and I feel like he's got it all together, and yet he's falling apart in my office, okay? And then I have an equal number of guys who come in who are living paycheck to paycheck, and I see them struggling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so money, you've heard the phrase, money doesn't buy happiness. Okay, that's definitely true. Money does provide for our basic needs.
Yeah.
And if you can't meet basic needs, then we know that survival becomes very difficult. But it goes way beyond what wealth is in terms of money. And so that's kind of the way where I wanted to go with this whole idea of what is wealth? How are you living? How do you need to form your mind, your mindset, your vision for life? How do you need to form it? And so I've just taken a look at the men that I've worked with and tried to put together some different lists. So some of these lists are things that you can Google and you'll see them. But I actually put my list together first, and then I Googled to see how much what I was seeing in men, how much it was matching other lists that were out there. And it was pretty shocking. Like, you know, we were right on each other in terms of what I see real life in my office versus what other people are writing about. Okay. So that's kind of where that came from, that whole idea.
Okay, I like it, and I think there's going to be some good conversation with this. You know, when we talk about that idea of a rich man, similar to what you were saying, that idea that money doesn't buy happiness, I think that's a great place to start, because I think there's definitely going to be there's going to be a disconnect. In my opinion, I think there's a disconnect between a rich man, obviously when it comes to wealth, versus a rich man when it comes to the character, and that's where we're going to hopefully take this conversation. You know, so when you talk about when you're talking about, you know, those guys that come into your office that are, you know, have financially stable, you know, they're financially stable, or, you know, some people would look and say that they're rich. Like when you see those people, and you were saying, you know, they seem to have it all together, right? I think that brings up a great idea, or you know, this mindset that I was kind of talking to you a little bit before we hit the record button on this show, was that for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just men in general or if it's just the human nature of it, but for whatever reason, I think a lot of people view money as power, and with money comes power. And maybe there's some of that, it has truth in it, but like when you get these guys who have wealth, like how do you, as a person, they're seeking your advice, right? So they're coming to you for that advice, but you obviously, almost like an outside perspective looking in, you see that they have the wealth. Like how do you approach those situations with somebody who is struggling? They're obviously, again, they're coming to you for advice. Like how do you dive into that?
Well, definitely when somebody comes in seeking help, I have to do a bigger picture personality sort of lifestyle check, because when somebody just comes in right off the bat, they seldom say the reason why I'm unhappy is because of my my wealth of money here. So we have to kind of go through and start to pick through things and get the bigger picture. And so what I think I'd like to do first, Kyle, just to help us, is I want to go through my list of things that I put together, that things that I've seen come into commonness with guys who tend to be wealthy in life. Okay, so maybe you could say they're happy, or that they've got a joy, or whatever. Okay, they've got a kick in their step. And then a list of things where these guys seem to be in poverty, at least in life, not necessarily financially, but and look at the characteristics, because characteristics help us identify the path that we are traveling in our life, okay? And we can do that in all different kinds of areas, but you can look at people's patterns and trends, and you can go, oh, okay, this is how this guy's wired, or how he chooses to live his life, and it starts to produce certain kinds of fruit. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about like what we see, and not about just the money side. All right. So people that I see that tend to have a happiness, tend to have a joy in their life, tend to have a kick in their step, money off the table here.
Sure.
Okay. They tend to be people who are thankful. They have gratitude.
Wow.
All right. I see that. People who are able to say stuff like, you know, hey, I'm just thankful that I have this, or I was lucky, or I was blessed. You hear those kind of terms thrown around a lot by those kind of people.
You know, with that idea of gratitude, something that you know, if you turn on the TV and you listen to whatever, whether it be a sports figure, a political figure, man, one thing that you were just talking made me think of, a lot of times you'll hear people, I think, you know, that maybe on the outside look like they're wealthy, but maybe you know, when we're talking about the character, it's all about I. Where when it comes to that gratitude aspect, you know, people who actually are like, man, we did this. I had a group of guys together. I had a team that helped me build this success that we currently have. And it's a lot of that, what you're talking about, that we like, that gratitude, where I know that my wealth, whether it's financial wealth or whether it's just happiness wealth, man, nothing that I'm going to be able to do by myself is going to get me there. You always going to need other people. Even if you're self-employed, you're going to need people to buy your products, right? You have to have other people that are contributing to your wealth. in the financial wealth and in the character wealth.
Right. That's a great point. You'll notice that and I think a lot of athletes and stuff have to even be coached up on this because they went from team to team, especially growing up.
Yep.
And I was on this select team and this select team. Everybody was wanting me. And at some point, they have to be taught, I didn't get you here. We got you here.
Yeah.
And that whole idea. And when I can talk in the form of we, I can start to have an appreciation for the people around me. And so it's an important thing too, when you go to work for a company or you go to work for a place, if you're talking to the person in charge and they're very, bragging and forthright about all of their accomplishments, you might want to get a quick glimpse of, I'm not going to be valued nearly as much as this guy in his eyes.
Yeah.
All right, because he's all about him, and his gratitude's going to be very thin throughout the herd. Yep. So something to just, again, we're generalizing here.
Right.
Another thing I see is they will place a value on time. You and I were just talking about this a little bit with work. A value on time towards things that matter to them. Yep. Okay? And this could be like family time. Yep. This could be like time building their faith. This could be like time serving and that kind of thing. So not just time in chasing wealth.
Yes.
Financial wealth. So time is valuable for other things that are important.
Yes. So with that time, that what you were just referencing, what we were talking about, man, that there's a lot of you guys out there that put a lot of value in your work. And I believe as followers of Christ, we're called to work. Men, we're called to work. We're called to be that for our family in whatever aspect that looks like. Obviously, work looks different for everybody. Again, that's kind of a relative term. But when it comes to valuing those relationships, the time, as strong dads, we're called to have valuable relationships. Our relationships should have a huge value to us, whether that's our relationship with Christ, our wives, our kids, whatever relationship you're talking about. So when it comes to the actual idea of a rich man, like as far as character goes, I think you're spot on, Murr, when you're talking about, man, we have to value that time that we do have with those relationships, because at the end of the day, I've made reference to this on the show before, and I say it a lot to myself, that my girls will never, ever come to me and say, Daddy, why didn't you work more? Mm-hmm. And I say that, don't take it the wrong way, because I understand that some guys financially have to work, right? Again, I truly believe that men are called to work. And if that's you have to work to provide for your family, by all means. But at the end of the day, man, is that paycheck going to be what your kids really need?
Right.
And I would really question if the answer to that is yes, because what our kids need is us to be present. That is why we started Strong Dads, is the idea of the dads being in the home, being present, being focused on our kids, instilling values, like valuing our relationships with our kids. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, if you're not there because you have to work, like, I want to be really careful when we teeter that line of knowing that you have to work, but also valuing your relationship. For me, it's I don't want to say easy, but my schedule, my job allows me to spend a lot of time at my house with my kids, and I'm grateful for that. I love every aspect that I'm able to spend a crap ton of time with my kids, and I know that not everyone has that, but what I would go to is, when you are home, what are you doing with that time when you are home?
I've mentioned before in previous shows that there will be a lot of people that will say, oh, it's not about the time, it's about the quality of time. So even if you have 5 minutes, if it's the best 5 minutes in the world, then that's all your kid needs. And I just will tell you flat out, that's not really the truth. Yeah. Because what I see is there needs to be a good mix of quality and quantity.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes even your presence creates a security and sense of well-being in the home. Mm. So even if you're not interacting, providing you're not caustic to the home, and you're not coming home and drunk and causing problems, providing you're just a healthy individual in the home, even just quality or quantity of time turns into a level of quality. So there is a mix there for sure. We definitely want good quality time, but to rationalize in your head, I know I'm only home 3 hours a week, but man, I make the best of it. You just have to be called out on that. It's like, it's not enough. Okay. Sure. And again, nobody likes to hear that, but when we're looking at the statistics and how it bears out, your kids need a little bit more, they need just that time. So that's an important thing. another thing I find with guys that come in is guys who have a sense of happiness and joy in their life have a sense of faith. Faith in something bigger than them. Faith, and what faith here is, I mean, for us, it's faith in God, right?
Yeah.
It's our Judeo-Christian faith. But faith in the idea that you don't have it all together. You don't know what tomorrow brings, but you're not panicked about that. You have a belief that things are going to work out, whatever that workout means. Like, I don't know what that looks like on the other side of today, but I have a faith. And so we as Christian men put that faith in God, and that allows us to have a calm and a break in the anxiety cycle to allow us to enjoy the moments. Okay.
Yep.
So that faith allows us to live in the moment. Christ
and
says, don't worry about tomorrow. Today's got enough of its own issues.
Well, man, how especially for men, because I feel like we put so much pressure on ourselves to be that, to be the answer for our kids, to be the answer for our wives, to fix things. Man, when you have a faith in something bigger than yourself, man, that pressure is released. Like, I'm not saying there is zero pressure, but it's so much better to be like, you know what, God, I don't have it all figured out. I know that you do. I'm going to give this to you because I'm a mess right now. My anxiety, I'm stressed out about this. Like, I need you to take this for me. And as a believer, man, that's powerful. That's good stuff. That is, again, why I think hopefully believers look a little bit different than the rest of the world, because we're able to, as men, we're able to give that up, because again, men want to be in charge. They want to feel like they have that power, and to be able to, basically humble yourself, like, God, you take care of this for me, man. That's going to make you look different. That could be that mindset where someone's going to look outside in and say, man, he's a rich man, maybe not financially, but he's rich in his character.
Right.
He has something a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure. So another trend that I see with guys coming in is, generally speaking, they are a healthier man, okay? And I should probably attach that they're healthy because they're active.
Okay.
In other words, they're not sit-around kind of guys. And whether they formally work out or whether they're just, like we've talked about with you don't sit around. I mean, you stay busy. Whether you're in your shop, whether you're out moving around, you're doing things. So they have a level of health that, well, this is actually pretty simple. Nobody feels good when they feel bad, right? Like when I'm sick. Oh,
that's true.
And so if you take a look at 100 days, and out of 100 days, 20 of those days you just don't feel like you got it going, or maybe you feel nauseous, or you just don't have any energy. That's 20%. That creeps into 30% and 40%. Next thing you know, you're like, I just want to try to get 3 or 4 days in a row here where I feel okay. So health is extremely important, and the things that tie into decent health, everything from activity to eating halfway decent, sleeping on a fairly healthy routine, those are things that happy people tend to have in common.
Yeah, that's good, man. This last thing you wrote down, Merle, I think is so true. The idea of purpose, and when it comes to your purpose, and again, these are characteristics that you've come across, Merle, and I think majority of you guys would agree when it comes to seeing someone and be like, man, they're different. They're much happier than the rest, or they look like a rich man, right? The idea of purpose is so true, and to me, when it comes to purpose and being purpose driven, man, I always go back to my vision that I have for my family. Because when I have a vision, I have that purpose. I know that my purpose with my marriage is to stay married for my kids. And the vision that Jenny and I have, we want to hit our 50th wedding anniversary, our 60th wedding anniversary. And because I have that long-term vision, and then we also have short-term goals and things we want to achieve, man, I'm purpose-driven. When
you have a purpose, you have a reason to let little small obstacles get out of the way and look towards the bigger thing. We are hopefully on the tail end of COVID. We've said that before in shows. But I just have to speak as to what I see. So I'm not speaking politically. I'm not speaking for any other thing. I have a number of people that have come into my office that I work with that have lost purpose. in large part because they have not been working. And I will even tell you, these stimulus checks and things that we have, I will tell you firsthand that I'm dealing with a higher number of people that are dealing with depression and anxiety because they don't have the normal distractors of getting up and having work and having purpose. And so that first week or two, or maybe 3, of kind of hanging around and just getting that check kind of felt cool, kind of felt like vacation. And now it has compiled and they've lost their drive and their energy to go do things. And now they're coming to see me, and because other things start to fall apart. Right.
Yep.
The marriage doesn't do as well. The parenting doesn't do as well. Even, I've got all this time for home projects. They're not even being touched.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, so they're coming into me. And one of my first things is, okay, we got to get you back on purpose, man. We got to, and sometimes purpose is, I just better go out and go make a paycheck so I can pay for my family, take care of my family. But that is very real. And like I said, I'm not reading that out of a book. I'm talking about what I see coming into my work. Yep. And I'm just telling you, I'm not here to argue with you. Like, this is a topic that I am covering way more than I should be covering on a weekly basis in sessions.
So, man, that list that we just went through, again, those are characteristics of people that would be quote unquote rich or kind of have that happiness appearance to them. So let's kind of get into some of the opposite of that. Some of the times when we look at someone and they may look quote unquote impoverished or unhappy, like what are some of the things that you have seen in your experience? And again, I'm sure your experience is no different than what some of our strong dads out there are noticing. I know, just reading through this list, I fall into this a few times, right? Because the first thing that you have written down is the idea of comparison. And man, I'm guilty of this, right? I can't tell you the number of times when I'm like, dude, that he's got it together, right? He's got that nice truck out there. He's got the nice car. He's got the nice watch on his wrist. Like he seems to have everything together. And I fall into this, and I think most guys probably do. You start to look at other guys like, man, they seem to got it all together, and you fall into that comparison trap. But again, just I think what you're talking about sometimes with this idea, this list of impoverished people or unhappy people, that it's more of a all the time.
Right. So the comparison thing is really almost this natural phenomena, keeping up with the Joneses, all those kinds of phrases that you've seen and heard before. The problem is you're comparing yourself to something you have virtually no control over. So that puts you at a loss from the get-go. And if I compare myself to another NFL football player and in terms of playing the football game, I will always come up short. Yep. So if you are a comparison person, one reason why I've always liked the endurance sports is, sure, if I go to a race, if I'm going down the final stretch, the last 100 yards, I want to beat you. I'm a terrible sprinter, so I've never won many of those. But I want to beat you, but really I need to beat me from my last time. So compare yourself against yourself. It's a much healthier way to approach things, and it allows me to be in control. Like, I knew what I was doing yesterday, so can I do better today than I did yesterday? When I go out for a run, and I do this all the time with my bike and stuff, it's like, hey, last time I rode this loop, I rode it in an hour and 10 minutes. Right. Today I'm going to see if I can break that or, get it. So I'm not beating anyone else. I'm improving within myself. That's a healthier way to become a better version of myself, and not leaving me into our next thing, which is that whole breeding of jealousy and envy. Okay. So those who compare outside of themselves have a large streak of jealousy and envy, and have a hard time then celebrating. Remember, jealous is I don't like that I don't have what you have, so I actually wish you didn't have it. So in other words, I can't celebrate your success. All right. So jealousy is when I see somebody that has something and I can't celebrate it. I don't have it, so I'm not celebrating that they have it. Yep. Oh, you've got $1 million? Yeah, I really don't want to hang around you anymore until I get my $1 million, and then we can hang around.
Which I think is a great point to make. That, man, if you're hanging out with people and you, like, I'm just thinking of my small group that I have. Really early on, golly, it's probably been about a year and a half. We have my small group on our show, and my one buddy Petey made a comment that, man, our small group, we get excited for other people, like other guys in our small group.
Yeah,
we get excited
cool.
for their successes. Like what you're saying, like, oh, you have $1 million. Like, we should be celebrating that. Like,
right.
Good for you. Like, you got that new promotion. And again, this is very difficult for myself included to be like, man, I'm glad you got that. Like, instead of saying, I'm glad you got that, when's mine coming, right? Like, man, I'm just happy that you got the success that you got the promotion, you got the new job, you got whatever it is. Man, you need to be surrounded by people who are encouraging you, who are like, heck yeah, man, you did that. Heck yeah, good for you, right? Versus, I want that, right? I want that. It's you didn't deserve that. I deserve it, right? And again, going back to that list of things when we look at people who are happy or rich, man, it's not about the I, right? It's like, man, you did that. Good for you.
Yeah.
Like, and hopefully that person is able to take a step back, but realize that, again, they didn't do it by themselves. It took a group of people. But man, find a group of men that are encouraging, that are not falling into the comparison or jealousy trap, and aren't comparing themselves to other people in your group. I think if you find that, man, you'll have a group of guys that you can do life with a lot easier.
It's a great support system. Yep. That's good stuff. So another thing that we start to see in guys who tend to not be happy in the long run, that they don't have that wealth in life, is kind of opposite of what we said before with having faith that things will work out. They only have faith in one thing, and that's themselves.
Yeah.
And so they become control freaks.
Yeah.
Right? They have to have their hand on everything. They micromanage things, whether they micromanage in the home, they micromanage at work, they micromanage everything that they do, because they only have faith in one thing. And if that one thing is them, all right, that all of a sudden, not only is it a control issue, but now it becomes a major stress issue, because good luck at managing everything that you have to. So that's the whole idea of us having faith. Not only do we have faith in God, but we also then start to impart that faith onto other people to help carry us, that team idea. And so these guys who tend to be unhappy in the long haul, they're all about, I'll just take care of myself. I'll take care of myself, and they're control freaks for that reason.
Man, that's good. This next one you got here, I think is so true. Man, when you're holding on to the past and you don't, truly let go of things and truly have that state where you're forgiving things that have happened, whether someone actually did harm to you and you're forgiving that person, or you haven't completely forgiven yourself for whatever that scenario is. Man, when you're holding on to the past, like truly unhappy people are constantly living in the past, and they're constantly trying to blame the past on why they're not happy today. And golly, if there's never been a better example of that than Jesus. Like, he clearly tells us, if you ask for forgiveness and I'm going to forgive you and your sins are wiped clean, like, don't worry about tomorrow. Just what you were saying before, like what happened yesterday is done. Like, let's move on. Let's try and get better every day. Wake up, trying to make yourself better and strive to get better. But if you constantly live in the past and constantly blame the past on why you're not successful today, you're gonna always have regrets. You're always gonna be unhappy, because you're like, man, that's why I'm in this place. And you have this on this list as well, that idea of playing the victim card. I think that plays right into it. If you're constantly saying it's someone else's fault, that the past did this to me, that someone else is the reason why I'm not in this place, when you constantly feed into that idea of the victim card, well, yeah, naturally you're going to come across unhappy, because it's very hard to be happy when you don't take ownership for the things that you can take control for.
Yeah. So I like the idea of looking at my past is like a day of game film. So Sunday football is played. Monday is about, you get your one day to review the game film.
Yeah.
You don't sit there and cry and complain for the entire next week about how something didn't go well on Sunday's game. You get one day, you take a look. What do we do well? What do we do not so well? And now I practice to get better in those areas and to make sure that I do the right thing for the next game. And so the same thing, I'm going to spend a limited amount of time, and I'm going to be active about that. Like, you know what? I've reviewed it. I've thought about it. I beat myself up. I'm done. Now we move forward with a new plan. Okay. So that's important to do. Something I also find that's important to recognize with unhappy people. Unhappy people do not understand empathy because the only one that they can feel for is themselves. So empathy is that whole idea of you stepping out of your shoes and trying to walk in another person's shoes. And if you're all wrapped up in your own shoes, you never really get the idea of you understanding what somebody else could be going through. And people who struggle with empathy become very self-focused because they think everybody should see things the way they do, right? Yeah. And then they also, you'll notice this, and we've all run into these people, all right? They have a really hard time apologizing for anything because they don't get why anybody else should be hurt. If you are in life with somebody who has a very difficult time apologizing, all right, that person most likely is not a very happy person. If something's going wrong, they're going to try to skirt it out onto somebody else. They're going to blame, they're going to excuse it to somebody else instead of just like we said before, seeing what went wrong, owning it, watching the game film, so to speak, owning your part, making your apologies, seeing how somebody else might have saw it, and okay, let's move on now. So these are some traits that run strongly together.
What about, in the part when it comes to the healthy people, or the healthy people, the rich people or the people who are happy? You were talking about, their health. They seem to be active.
Wealthy people who are having a rich life are, in a nutshell, they are doers, not complainers. Okay. And so these health issues you're talking about tend to be people who know what they should do, but don't do anything about it. And so they have a more sedentary lifestyle. They don't take care of the simple things that they could be taking care of through lifestyle changes and staying active and pursuing the problem solving in their own life. And so these are the things that happen. So we want to wrap that up right there. If you want to be wealthy, God's word's always amazing, and I think that's one of the things that continues to drive me to do what I do. There's always an answer in God's word, and it's an answer that can be proven. It can be scientifically proven. And here's the coolest thing: if you go to up to Galatians. And Galatians, I want to make sure I get this right. Galatians 5, 13 through 26. I'm going to read through it, and just bear with me in the read through, okay? But when you see why I want to read the whole passage, you'll see like, oh, so this is what happens to people who don't do this. I say Galatians 5, 13 through 26. It talks about life by the Spirit, living by the Spirit, okay? And that is the Spirit of God, having God's nature in you, okay? God's nature, not human nature. And we've talked about that many times in the show, like, well, what would it look like to have God's nature in me? And so it says, you, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free. I want you to hear that right there. You are called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. So happy people are servers, okay? For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. If you bite and devour each other, watch out, or you will be destroyed by each other. So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other. So kind of like being a happy person and an unhappy person, so that you are not to do whatever you want. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law, okay? And then it starts talking about, like, here's what happens if we live by our humanness, by our human condition. Here's what happens. The acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. Hey, These are the things that are all associated with the list that we just created, with the unhappiness that people have, the lack of wealth in their life. They're connected. I could go through each one of those words and show you somehow that they were connected to that list, okay? Kyle, can you read verse 22? Because this talks about what we see with the happy people.
Yeah, this is actually Mia's favorite verse.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, she sings a song
starting
all the time.
her off well. Yeah.
So in 22 it picks up. It says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control." And man, that is because that's what happiness looks like, because that is happiness in Christ. Where the other side, where you talk about 19, man, if that's not a depiction of what our world currently looks like, I don't know what is. That is it's a great depiction of what happiness being the fruit of the Spirit versus unhappy or impoverished people look like. Man, that's a great comparison and contrast in there. I think it's so true.
Yeah. So the whole idea here, guys, is if you are struggling in your life with, I just can't seem to get it right. I'm not where I want to be in my life. There's always a level of disgruntledness, of just unhappiness. And whether it's in finances, whether it's in relationships, whether it's with your parenting and your kids, whether it's at your workplace, it comes down to this right here. And this is very clear. And I went through my own homemade list, so to speak, that I actually get to see with my own eyes. And I did that on purpose because that was without God's word in my mind. These are the traits that I see. And then to flip that right into Scripture and read Galatians 5 immediately points out why we get stuck. Why we get stuck in hatred and discord and idolatry and selfish ambition. How did I get it all trapped up in there? Because I wasn't living by the Spirit. And the fruit of the Spirit, these are things you can practice, okay, where you actually see joy. If you didn't listen, Linda and I in our Rock Solid radio show just did a show about finding hope in the midst of grief. And you've got to go back and listen to that at Rock Solid Radio. An incredible story about a lady by the name of Debbie Baker who you don't even want to get into a comparison argument on whose life is more challenging. And not to say that anyone's life needs to be more challenging than anyone else, but she's had tragedy after tragedy, and she's had to go and find Galatians 5 and figure out, how do I get the joy of the Spirit in my life? And becomes a practice. It's a choice to do this. All right. It's not like, well, I just woke up one day and I had this. It's a choice to do this. And so if you are stuck in a not so good place in any of these areas, then I ask you, start thinking about these fruits of the Spirit rather than just reading them like you came through a vacation Bible school. All right.
I probably just did that.
Well, that's the way we all do it,
Mia
right?
just rattles off. She sings her song.
Yeah. That's how we all learned it. But that whole idea of okay, no, I want to practice like what does peace look like? What does patience? This is not just patience with yourself. This is patience with other people. When other people are coming up short in your eyes, you are having a level of patience with them. So that keeps you out of judgment against them. We don't need to be in that judgment chair, do we? Okay. And just that kindness and that goodness, all of those things is self-control. So what an awesome opportunity to learn about how we can be wealthy. You have wealth now based off of living in the Spirit and not living in your bank account.
So good, man. I hope this topic meant something to you. I hope you got something out of it. Yeah, go back and read Galatians 5:13. Read that, man. Dive into His Word. Talk with your wife about the fruit of the Spirit. Discuss it with your kids. My girls love talking about the fruit of the Spirit. Man, we really do appreciate you guys. When you guys tune in and listen, man, share the heck out of our shows. We're putting out weekly shows. We're coming up on our 2 years. We've been doing this. We've been at this for 2 years. We really appreciate you guys. If we're speaking into you, we would love to come alongside you. I know Merle and Linda would love to talk to you guys. If you have struggles going on in your marriage, with your personal life, with your kids, whatever that case would be, man, reach out to them. They would love to come alongside you and help you out in whatever your needs are. Thanks so much for Kramer's Beer House and Casey's Outdoor Solutions. We actually forgot to mention at the beginning of the show, so we'll do it again. Thanks so much for Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Kramer's Beer House. We really do appreciate you. We actually went down there and had a little date night down there at Kramer's. It was delicious.
I actually took a picture of the urinal finally.
Oh, did you?
I got a picture of the urinal.
Oh.
Now, that's kind of creepy, isn't it?
Maybe, but
I should probably post it because it's really pretty cool.
It's worth seeing.
It's worth it. I mean, it's a man's urinal. And if you're a lady, well, you're listening to Strong Dads, okay? That's all I can tell you. All right. We do want to thank all you guys, so go out there and be a strong dad.
Hey, this is Kyle Carver from Strong Dads. Strong Dads podcast would love to thank the Crimers Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Crimers Beer House was started in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down to Route 128 and check out the Crimers Beer House.